Hey everyone, welcome to my first YouTube restoration video. Today I'm just going to be going through these Rimu wooden drawers that I picked up here from the tip shop. First thing we do is strip it down, take all the handles off. There's one that I've already done because I tested the finish on it, so that's what that one at the back is. So I keep it all in a box just to make sure I know where everything is. I did the handles separately, so you won't see that in this video. Once we've stripped everything down, the first thing we're going to do is apply some paint stripper. I use the Intergrain Timber Strip. It's a water-based paint stripper, so I find it doesn't burn if you get it on the skin, although you should wear gloves. I just didn't have any at the time. I've got some now, so the next video I should wear them. You're going to put it on, brush it on quite thick, leave it for 20 minutes and then come back and scrape it off. Here's me doing that drawer as a test piece a couple of days before, so it comes out like a thick gel. You're just going to put it on, brush it on nice and thick, then leave it, come along and scrape it off. Coming up here you can see what the drawer will look like and what the wood looks like once it's completely stripped. So yeah, here I am. Here's a scraper. It's nice and simple. You can get a plastic one or a metal one. Plastic ones won't damage the wood, but if you're careful, a metal one you won't. It'll just come off like a thick paste. Ideally I should have done the main carcass of the drawers, top and sides, individually, but I'm quite impatient, so I did it all as one. Whereas if I'd done it individually, I could have laid it down. It would have made it a little bit easier and probably made it more efficient on the stripper as well, but as I said, I'm quite impatient, so I did it all in one. Once you've scraped it all down, you want to make sure you try and get as much off as you can, and then you're going to come along with some methylated spirits and a wire wool brush or a wire wool cloth, whichever it is you've got, steel wool, whatever you want to call it. And you're going to go over everything with that, and then also with a cloth, just to make sure you get any residual paint stripper from the wood, because you don't want that stuff hanging around for too long. It'll deactivate it, so it's not keep stripping after you've used it. So here I am just going over it with the steel wool and a cloth, just making sure I've got everything off. You want to try and make sure that your wood that you're working on is as clean as possible. That's going to help you later on when you're applying your finish or your paint. You don't want to get any dirt or stains coming through. This whole project took me just a weekend to do. It's not that hard, as long as you set yourself up. You can do pretty much any project in a weekend. You can see I've got a couple in the line. I've got some coffee tables to do, a dresser and a bookcase. That should keep me busy as it's winter here in New Zealand. So as it is winter, my garage can get a bit cold, so I do have a heater on, just to keep the temperature up in there, because a lot of the products you shouldn't apply when it gets too cold. So here's what they look like once they've been stripped and wiped down. So the next stage is to get to sanding. Now I'm a vehicle painter by trade, so I do have a sander that I use at work. This is a Festoon ETS EC153, so that just means it has a 3mm sanding radius, so it's a very good sander, but you can definitely do this with anyone. I do have a Ryobi one that I use sometimes, gets in a smaller one. So this has just got a bigger surface area for sanding, and it attacks right to the vacuum, so it really leaves minimal dust for me. You should wear a dust mask if you're not using extraction. Do highly recommend having that. And I'll start off with a 180 grit sanding disc. The lower the number, the more coarse the sanding disc, so the harsher it's going to be. If there's any damage that I see that it's taken a little while to come out, I do go down to 80. As you can see in a minute, I'll just grab an 80 grit disc, and that will just help remove some of the worst damage. General rule I have is you should spend twice as long as you go down the grade. So if I do 5 minutes on 80, I will do 10 minutes on 180, 20 minutes on 320, but obviously I don't spend that long on each one. It's a couple of minutes on each one usually. A couple of minutes on 80, then double that for 180, double that for 320, and just finishing off around the edges by hand, using a block where I can, just try and keep the edges nice and curved, making sure that all the old finish is completely removed. It's a bit tedious, but the more careful you are here now, the better it's going to be at the end. So this is what they come up like. So Rimu, being a native wood to New Zealand, is very nice wood to work with. This is the first time I've worked with it. You can see a crack there, we're going to sort that out in a bit. And there's the drawer that I'd already tested a finish on. So I go over the whole thing with a tack cloth just to make sure I've got all the dust. There's not a lot left with my sander, so it's quite an easy and fast step. I'm just going to raise the carcass up here just so that it's off the floor for me to apply the finish. I'm going to be using Cabot's Danish oil. It's the first time using this product. It says on the instructions to brush it on, then leave for 8 hours and do 240 sanding in between coats, and recoat is after 8 hours. Again, I had the heater on here just so that it didn't get too cold. Now, it's the first time I'm using Danish oil. I've never used it before, so it's different for me. After a while, after I did a couple of coats, I realised it wasn't drying and it was being left really tacky. I had a quick look online, and apparently you should put it on and then wipe it off 10 to 15 minutes later, then leave it for 8 hours, so that's something I learned on this. Also with this one, with the filler that I'm going to be doing in a minute, it does say that you should apply the first coat of oil and then do your filling and sanding, so that's what I did. You see here, I'm just brushing it on. I'm quite liberal with the first coat because my understanding is that quite a lot will soak into the wood on the first coat, because obviously you've stripped all the oils out, so it's going to be soaked directly in. So here we have just a quick glance of what it'll come up, and you can see the grain is coming up real nice. So I left that overnight to dry. I say the temperature did drop a bit, so it was still quite tacky in the morning. So I just wiped it with a rag, any bits that were still really tacky. So I got a Rimu stained water-based wood filler. You can see that's the crack before. It's not too bad, it hasn't gone all the way through, so all the way down, sorry, so we just use a spreader and get it right in there. And also there were some chips down the bottom by the feet, so I went round the whole carcass, and there was one on one of the drawers. I just filled it in, sanded it back with some 240. After it dried, I did do 2 applications of this just to get the build up and get some shaping done. It's water based, so it dries in about half an hour, but you can speed that up with a hairdryer or hot air gun if you've got one. I just had the heater on, and it took about half an hour for each coat to dry. Again, just 240 on a block, and it come up. So I did the 2 coats, over another 2 coats that day. Here's the crack afterwards, and found out that it wasn't drying. So I got the turpentine spirits, wiped it over, and that took the excess off. And here's just the finish. With the drawers, I just stripped them back. The drawer handles, I just stripped them back and painted them with a charcoal paint. And as you can see here, this is the finished product. You can see the grain, all the damage is gone. It's a real nice smooth finish and really hard wearing. So hope you enjoyed that.